It's not the type of major move everyone's been waiting for, but the San Francisco Giants did make an effort to upgrade their roster on Monday evening. Welcome into another edition of the Kerry Crowley Show, breaking down all things Giants baseball, and this episode, a reaction to the reported 2-year, $8 million contract the Giants have agreed to with catcher Tom Murphy. So let's break things down. Jeff Passan reporting late Monday afternoon that the Giants have agreed to this contract. Ken Rosenthal was the first to report that the two sides were close to an agreement, and the Giants themselves have not yet announced this deal, which probably means it's pending a physical, and of course, not a foregone conclusion in San Francisco. But I want to talk a little bit about Murphy, what he brings to the table, and then how this signing impacts Patrick Bailey, Joey Bart, and Blake Sabol. So let's start with Murphy. 32 years old, right-handed hitter, throws right-handed, far more bat-first catcher than a glove-first catcher. You're going to see someone who's hit 38 home runs over the last 4 seasons in a part-time role with the Seattle Mariners. An OPS, I think, I got the number in front of me. It was a 784 OPS in parts of 4 seasons with Seattle. Obviously, pretty good numbers at the plate, but the downside to Tom Murphy is that the StatCast metrics on his defensive end of his game were not kind last season. He had a 7 percentile ranking in terms of pop time, so you're not going to see quick throws down to second base. 28 percentile ranking in terms of his framing, and he was not quick with much behind the plate. And so what the Giants are essentially saying with this signing is, we need someone to be the backup catcher. We believe that we can go with an offense-first guy because Patrick Bailey is so good with the glove defensively, and so they're looking for some added value at the plate, especially in the right-handed batter's box. Remember, Patrick Bailey, a switch hitter, and his stronger side of the plate is the left side. So if you're projecting into the 2024 season on this 2-year, $8 million deal, Tom Murphy is probably going to make the majority of his starts when the Giants are facing left-handed pitching. It's not going to be a true platoon because I still anticipate Patrick Bailey to take 100 to 110 games behind the plate and then appear in the late innings defensively in several other games. But if you're starting to think about how the Giants want to map this out for 2024, remember, Patrick Bailey in his rookie season kind of ran out of gas at the end of the year. This was someone who came up and provided the Giants with more than they could have ever expected out of the 2020 draft pick. I think he was taken 13th overall in the first round. He started the year, I believe, at High A Eugene, worked his way very quickly to Double A Richmond, then to Triple A Sacramento, and it felt like in no time he was in the big leagues and he was having signature moments. I'll never forget the 3-run home run he hit off of David Robertson at Citi Field that helped the Giants come back to a victory over the Mets. There was also the walk-off homer at Oracle Park. This is someone who clearly has a bright future in the organization and someone the Giants are no way going to trade this offseason. Farhan Zaidi has looked to invest significantly in the catcher position, both by drafting Bailey 2 years after the Giants went after Joey Bart with the number 2 overall pick, but with the series of waiver claims he's often put in on catchers who have come available over the years to the San Francisco Giants. You've seen the Giants shift through catchers ever since Buster Posey retired in 2021, and Patrick Bailey certainly looks like the long-term solution for the San Francisco Giants. The problem for this team, Bailey down the stretch didn't hit all that well. Finished the season with a 77 OPS plus, 23% below league average. He hits better from the left side of the plate than he does the right side of the plate. So signing Tom Murphy gives the Giants someone who can provide some pop, who can be a respectable hitter at the bottom half of your order against those left-handed starters that you're going to face on days that you want to get Bailey the day off. And so what it also does is gives the Giants someone who can catch the first 6 or 7 innings of a game. And if it's close and Bailey's on the bench, he can come in and take over as a defensive replacement because he's far superior to Tom Murphy defensively. And heck, Patrick Bailey, far superior to just about every catcher in Major League Baseball defensively. I think you can make a very compelling argument that he deserved the Gold Glove Award as a rookie in the National League. Ultimately didn't get it, but there should be plenty of time for him to rack up that piece of hardware and do it many times throughout his Major League career. The most significant component to this trade, though, for the San Francisco Giants, in that they already have Patrick Bailey and now they've committed to a multi-year contract with a backup catcher, is that Joey Bart's time in the organization, while it is not officially over, it appears headed to an end. Joey Bart immediately becomes a trade chip for the San Francisco Giants. You think about the number 2 overall pick in the 2018 draft. And I was there covering the team as a beat reporter in 2017. I remember Pablo Sandoval's home run on the final day of the regular season, the walk-off home run that meant the Giants picked second and not first in that draft. Remember, Casey Mize went first overall, and the Detroit Tigers have not gotten any value, really, from Casey Mize at the major league level. Well, the number 2 overall pick, Joey Bart, has not provided much for the San Francisco Giants. He has a .7 WAR to date in his career. I think he's got exactly 100 hits to his name, 11 home runs, far more strikeouts than anyone would have anticipated, and didn't develop with the glove as quickly as some folks in the organization thought he might coming out of Georgia Tech. And so I think that a change of scenery could benefit Joey Bart at this point in his career. I really enjoyed covering him. He worked really hard, and he took the struggles that he had both at AAA and the major league level really hard. I mean, this is someone who consistently worked his way to try to get back to the major leagues when he was in AAA. He was consistently showing up for pregame, working with hitting coaches. Back when I was covering the team, he was someone who wanted desperately to make an impact at the major league level. The adjustments just didn't happen for him quickly enough. And oftentimes, you feel the burden as a high draft pick. And I think in the San Francisco Giants organization, that was particularly noticeable for Bart during the 2020 season, because he not only, when he was drafted, was anointed as Buster Posey's heir apparent. And look, that wasn't the media's doing. That's just what happens when you're taken with the number 2 overall pick. The expectations are that you are going to become the guy. And unfortunately for Bart, the guy in front of him, who was already the guy, Hall of Fame caliber player who every Giants fan came to know and love with those 3 World Series titles, Posey brought the organization that something Barry Bonds couldn't even bring them in the San Francisco era, which is a World Series title, and he did it 3 times. And so when Buster Posey decides to step away for the 2020 season, Joey Bart just had very few minor league reps under his belt at the time. And the Giants were headed into that season, the pandemic season, 60-game year, with Posey penciled in as their catcher and 2 veteran backups in Tyler Heineman and Rob Brantley, kind of scheduled to be the backups behind Posey, with the hope that Bart would eventually make it to the major league level. Well, Posey opts out, of course. He and his wife, Kristen, adopt twins. They make the decision to protect their family at the time. And of course, everyone in the San Francisco Giants organization very much respected that call. And especially, this would have been true of every player who made that decision, but especially with the fact that Buster Posey had already given the organization so much. But it put the Giants in an interesting position, because they went into that 60-game season with Tyler Heineman and Rob Brantley as the 2 guys who were expected to share the bulk of the reps behind the plate, and neither was equipped to do so. And so what it forced Farhan Zaidi to do far earlier than I think he would have liked to is promote Joey Bart to the big league level, because he had the raw tools, he had the ability to succeed that maybe Brantley and Heineman didn't have. He just simply wasn't ready at that time. And I think that he wore those struggles really in a way that, maybe didn't benefit him over the next few years in San Francisco. It was too much too soon for Joey Bart, and he realized that the major leagues were going to be incredibly daunting. And so one of the best things for Bart's career probably was Posey coming back in 2021, taking the spotlight off of him, having that great season that Posey did, an MVP caliber campaign really with the San Francisco Giants. And Bart was able to spend most of that year in AAA, continuing to prepare himself for the big league level, getting the reps that he really needed to get back in 2020. But Bart's career just never took off. In 2022, 2023, he wasn't able to make the difference that the Giants sought from a guy who, came into their organization with such high expectations. And look, in the last 10 years or so, 10, 15 years, this is not a Giants team that has drafted all that well in the first round. I should cut that off at 15 years. In 2008, they drafted, I think it was Buster Posey. So yeah. 15 years, we're going to cut that off. But in the last 10 years or so, they haven't gotten what they've needed out of first-round picks, which has put them in quite a predicament, as an organization, because you're trying to build through your farm system. You're trying to build a sustainable winner, and when you consistently miss on players, when your first-round picks are Tyler Beede, Chris Shaw, Chris Stratton, the list goes on and on. Joey Bart, Hunter Bishop, who hasn't been able to make an impact at the big league level in 2019. He was the first-round pick. It puts the organization organization in a whole, because it means that you're relying on your international free agent signees who come to the organization when they're about 16, 17 years old. They're just teenagers, so there's far less certainty when you're signing them. And you've got to hit on your middle to late round draft picks. And of course, the draft has not necessarily been the Giants' friend ever since the early 2000s when they went after Tim Lincecum, Matt Cain, and Madison Bumgarner and Buster Posey. But it still means that the Giants have not been able to produce and has forced them to go into the free agent market and the trade market to try to improve their roster. And we know that those are far more difficult to find players who aren't flawed, find players who are available for a reason. You know, some players, very few get to free agency and sign the major contracts that you're going to see this offseason with Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who's coming over from Japan, Blake Snell, Matt Chapman, Cody Bellinger. But the pool is pretty thin of players who can make a major impact on a major league roster. And so Joey Bart obviously didn't really work out for the San Francisco Giants, and now it's going to be fascinating to see if and where they send him, because they're not required to get him off of their 40-man roster right now. There's still a spot for him. He still occupies one. He could go back to AAA, or they could carry 3 catchers this year. I don't know if he's out of options, so I don't know what the rules are around Joey Bart right now, but I can foresee a scenario in which he's traded somewhere, maybe to the Southeast, closer to his Georgia home. You know, the Miami Marlins are looking to deal a pitcher. Could the Giants send Joey Bart, Elliot Ramos, and Keaton Winn down to Miami for someone like Jesus Luzardo? It might take more to get Luzardo. However, reuniting him with Bob Melvin, that's an idea for you. So I want to talk a little bit about what it meant for Joey Bart. Obviously, it doesn't really impact Patrick Bailey. He's going to continue to be the guy. 100 to 110 starts is my anticipation. He'll fill in 15, 20 more games behind the plate. Tom Murphy will probably make 30 to 40 starts. The Giants will figure it out from there. But the other player who this impacts is Blake Sabol. And this impacts him in a very interesting way because he's no longer a Rule 5 draft pick. And I would say that Blake Sabol had a successful rookie season. You don't often see Rule 5 draft picks stick at the major league level, and Blake Sabol did so with the San Francisco Giants. He hit some memorable home runs for this team, played the outfield, played behind the plate, and of course he was a work in progress behind the plate. He needed to do a lot defensively, but it'll be interesting to see when the Giants arrive at spring training if Sabol is ahead of Tom Murphy defensively just because he's younger and more athletic, and Murphy at the age of 31 already wasn't a great defensive catcher with the Seattle Mariners. And so Blake Sabol can still help in the outfield. He could still be a power bat off the bench. He could be a DH as a left-handed hitter. But I think this also gives the Giants the luxury of being able to send him to AAA Sacramento to start the season, provided there are no injuries and they don't need Blake Sabol at the major league level. That's quality depth to have. However, it's also an intriguing scenario because I think that signing Tom Murphy to this 2-year, $8 million deal that, again, has been reported by Jeff Passan, it gives the Giants the opportunity to potentially consider trades for Blake Sabol. And this is someone who would have value, and potentially more value than Joey Bart would even have in a potential trade, because Blake Sabol is a left-handed hitter. He can catch and he can play the outfield for you. There are just very few players at the major league level with his type of a skill set, and teams who are looking to improve on the margins. You think the teams who maybe have lost their TV deals over the last year, teams that are looking to shed salary and still compete at the major league level. I look at maybe the Cleveland Guardians, the Minnesota Twins, the Miami Marlins. These are all teams that might be intrigued in acquiring Blake Sabol in a deal. And so I don't think it's probably at the front of the Giants' mind right now. I don't think it's probably something that they're considering in this moment, a trade involving Blake Sabol. But I do think that the possibility that Sabol's name comes up because other teams would be interested, that's now very realistic. And so while the Giants' priority is probably getting Bart a new home right now, Blake Sabol could be the guy who's more sought after. So the Giants could have a variety of options now that Tom Murphy is projected to be in the building and backing up Patrick Bailey for the 2024 season. And so this signing, obviously not one that Giants fans have been waiting for all offseason. It's not Yoshinobu Yamamoto. It's not Blake Snell. It's not even one of the top 2 position players on the market, Matt Chapman and Cody Bellinger. But it is the type of move that has a significant ramification on the 2024 depth chart. It really, solidifies the Giants' catching depth, something that, in my opinion, was still a question if they were going to move forward with Patrick Bailey heading into his second season and Joey Bart still an uncertainty. Blake Sabol continuing to need to adjust behind the plate, but Murphy gives them a veteran backup presence there, and so the Giants can move forward knowing that they've got that in hand and move forward potentially able to consider deals for both Bart and maybe Sabol if the right team and the right deal comes calling. Again, don't think it's a priority for the Giants, but I would not be shocked if they receive phone calls on him, because I believe he has a bright future at the major league level. And again, that skill set is rare. So that's the instant reaction to the Giants signing of Tom Murphy. More later on this week. We'll look at the Giants' internal trade candidates and players who I could see headed out the door this offseason. Thanks so much for watching this edition of the Kerry Crowley Show.